Voici le lac Beamish, un trésor caché en Outaouais. On peut voir au loin le corridor écologique Breckenridge s'étendre jusqu'à la rivière des Outaouais. Le lac Beamish, aussi connu comme le lac Mountains sur les cartes géographiques, est le cœur du quartier Hollow Glen de Chelsea, en bordure de l'escarpement Eardley. Le but de ce documentaire est de sauver le lac et de protéger son environnement, particulièrement le corridor faunique Breckenridge. Nous exposerons certains des impacts environnementaux importants subis par le lac et qui, si rien n'est fait par la municipalité de Chelsea, pourraient devenir permanents. Ces impacts découlent d'une décision de la municipalité qui, aujourd'hui, nous semble injustifiée. Nous expliquerons aussi comment le corridor écologique Breckenridge contribue non seulement à la biodiversité du parc de Gatineau, mais aussi à l'environnement du lac Beamish. L'intégrité et la fonction même du corridor sont menacées par un projet domicilié approuvé par la municipalité de Chelsea. Nous demandons donc votre soutien par l'entremise d'une pétition en ligne qui sera remise à Carol Green, mairesse de Chelsea, et au ministère de l'Environnement du Québec, afin que le niveau du lac Beamish soit rétabli et que l'environnement exceptionnel de cette région de l'Outaouais soit protégé pour nous tous et pour les générations futures.
The history of this place really goes back to this was all farmland. And it was there was divided up. All of this land was divided into farms along a number of creeks here, and at one point, one of the people who owned a lot of the land here was a Mr. Lyle Beamish, and he decided that he wanted to create a bit of a recreation area here for all the people in actually for all the people in Ottawa and the western Quebec side. He started off by building a ski hill coming down from Mount King, and it was very popular. He had built a lodge there, and it was the most popular ski hill and resort in western Quebec. And Mr. Beamish also set up a swimming area on the far side of Lake Beamish, where he had built a small zoo where people would come in and see animals. Children would come and play, and they would eat at the lodge. And it was a popular weekend destination for people from the whole area.
En 2002, à la suite des inondations du Saguenay en 1996, le gouvernement du Québec a adopté la loi sur la sécurité des barrages qui exige, entre autres, qu'une étude de sécurité soit effectuée pour chacun des barrages de la province. Ce n'est que 9 ans plus tard, en 2011, que la municipalité de Chelsea a décidé d'agir au nom de la sécurité. La municipalité décida de vider une grosse partie du lac de façon unilatérale. Tous les résidents se sont sentis concernés par la sécurité des personnes et des propriétés en aval. Par contre, maintenant nous savons que les risques réels sont beaucoup moindres que l'on nous a fait croire.
Ça fait 17 ans que je suis ici, que j'habite ici, puis c'est la première fois là, que l'eau est si basse que ça.
Mon quai est maintenant dans de l'herbe, dans des herbes hautes. Là. Les herbes, là, on peut dire qu'ils montent jusqu'à 10 pieds là, par rapport au niveau de l'eau. Moi, j'ai plus d'eau du tout. Autour de mon quai, là, c'est que de la végétation.
In October 2011, thanks to a leaked email, residents found out that the municipality was planning to lower the water level of the lake to an unprecedented low. The municipality seems to have chosen to ignore the safety reports produced by Quebec's Centre of Hydrological Expertise and to solely rely on a preliminary safety report based on visual observations and a set of assumptions. We do question the validity of the data used. The water level used as the basis for the study was in fact 3 feet higher than the highest level observed during the June 24, 2011 flood. It has to be said that these data have been provided by the municipality and taken by municipal employees and not by an engineer. What if there was an error made? We believe that this error could have significantly affected the findings of the report, which concluded that the lake has to be lowered. We have asked the municipality to share with us all the documents related to the measurements taken And the answer we got is that there were none, that this was all discussed verbally over the phone.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that the water levels in the lake here are low, and certainly lower than I've seen them. But it's very clear that the water levels have dropped substantially, maybe 70, 80 centimeters, or perhaps even more. And there's a number of obvious impacts associated with the lake of that reduction in water levels. I guess the first one, which probably everybody around here has noticed, is that the shoreline area, which scientists call the littoral zone, which used to be underwater, is no longer underwater. And the consequence of that, of course, is that these shoreline areas, which were underwater and wet before, are drying out, and what you're seeing is plants that would otherwise not be able to tolerate the wet conditions in these areas are moving in. And where you see that particularly is in some of these shallow bays, especially on the other side, where you essentially have these shallow bays that are now, the soil is almost completely dried out, growing up, and so people don't have any access to waterfront anymore. They don't have any waterfront to speak of. So you have, that's one obvious consequence of the reduction in water levels. Another obvious consequence is that, and this is perhaps of a bit more concern, is that if you think about the volume of water in the lake, the concentration of nutrients in the lake depends on how much stuff is in the lake and the volume. As you shrink the volume, if you have the same amount of stuff coming in, the concentration of nutrients goes up. And we know as ecologists that production, plant life and algae and those kinds of things in lakes are limited by the amount of nutrients, and the nutrient concentration in particular. So as you shrink the volume of lake, the concentration of nutrients goes up. And because the nutrient concentration is what limits algae growth, or one of the limiting factors, what you see is a lot more of the kinds of things that people consider to be unsightly and irritating algae growth, especially in the shallow bays like at the other end of the lake.
Voici ce que les rapports d'inspection du Centre d'expertise hydrique du Québec, l'organisation responsable sur la sécurité des barrages, nous dit à propos de nos barrages.
In 2003, recent data collected on-site leads us to conclude that no main or secondary residence located downstream is likely to be affected by the failure of this structure. Hollow Glen Road remains the only piece of infrastructure at risk. In 2008, the dam, number X0002867, is of Class C, with the severity of consequences classified as low, while its general condition is considered good. In 2009, the road embankment appears watertight because there is no apparent flow coming out of the embankment. In 2010, the reliability of the discharge facilities, therefore the spillway, is acceptable. On July 13, 2011, following the flood of June 24th. During the flooding, there was no damage to the dams, other than some slight surface erosion on the banks close by the concrete spillway. And on November 28, 2011, the municipality of Chelsea informed the residents of Hollow Glen that the evacuation capacity of Beamish Dam is insufficient to guarantee an adequate management of significant floodwaters and to ensure the security of Hollow Glen Dam. Significant floods and excessive water levels could threaten the structure of this dam.
Pourquoi est-ce que le barrage, après plus de 65 ans d'existence et qui a bien résisté au déluge du 24 juin dernier, devient tout à coup un danger public? Avant de baisser le niveau du lac, une étude d'impact environnemental avait été demandée par la communauté. En décrétant l'état du barrage comme une situation urgente, la municipalité a pu procéder sans faire aucune étude de la sorte. Un ingénieur du Centre d'expertise hydrique du Québec nous a récemment avoué que la municipalité pourrait augmenter le niveau de l'eau, mais qu'elle demeure inflexible. Le plus troublant, c'est qu'il nous a aussi dit que la municipalité avait d'autres options plutôt que de procéder comme elle l'a fait.
Les résidents du quartier Hollow Glen ont de tout temps affirmé leur ferme engagement envers la préservation du lac, de sa faune et la qualité de son eau.
and I headed up a committee on environment. And I wrote a letter to Environment Canada to apply for a grant to help us get an environmental project started, which would build a stronger buffer zone around the lake to filter out any nutrients that were flowing, let's say, from properties into the lake, which would help to reduce the growth of algae in the lake. And that was one of our most positive contributions here. There's a total of $50,000 in the project, and we spent, it was basically 1/3 the community and 2/3 on Environment Canada. The community itself put in about $18,000 of money into the project, but it had a component of planting these shrubs and trees along the lake shore to build up a zone which would be a filtering zone. And the rest of the money was spent on educational activities. We put on a seminar at the community center. We had help from the municipality in doing that, and it was very effective in helping the whole community to become more interested and aware of their own environment.
Il y a quelques années à peine, notre communauté a été citée par Chelsea comme un exemple de leadership en matière d'action communautaire bénévole dans le domaine de la protection de l'environnement.
I think that there are other issues, above and beyond the lowering of water levels in the lake, and many ecologists would agree with me, is if you want to maintain an ecosystem like a lake or a wetland, maintain its health, maintain its integrity, it's not just about making sure that the actual lake itself is managed well, but it's also a question of making sure that the other areas around the lake, the regional context, is well managed, because many of the species that make use of lake habitats also make use of habitats around the lake. Amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and birds. They use some parts of the lake and some specific habitats in the lakes, but they will also use the surrounding habitats. And in order for them to move back and forth between those habitats, you have to manage the landscape in such a way that you allow for that movement. And that's something that I think lots of people lose sight of. So for example, here, 500 meters down this way, we have a piece of land which has been identified as a wildlife corridor for Gatineau Park, and yet we have 70 or 80 unit housing division that's being proposed here, and there's no question that housing development will affect the ecological attributes of that corridor and impair the ability of some species of wildlife, not all species of wildlife, but some species of wildlife to move. And that's the kind of thing that people have to be concerned about, because it's not just what's exactly here in the lake, it's also this surrounding habitat.
Residents of Hollow Glen questioned the motives of the municipality to lower the level of Beamish Lake. It was shortly after the Municipal Council was given a presentation regarding a housing project 500 meters downstream from Hollow Glen Dam that the municipality initiated a preliminary safety study on the dam in question. As mentioned by Dr. Scott Findlay, this housing project is planned within an NCC wildlife corridor. In its actual form, this project could have critical impacts on the connector that links to Gatineau Park. It is important to mention that even though the Breckenridge corridor contains at least 32 species at risk, and that it has been ranked second in importance in the NCC report on Gatineau Park's wildlife corridors, Chelsea's Municipal Council voted a resolution asking the NCC to delay its publication.
Tous les résidents à qui je parle sont vraiment sont choqués, sont tristes de ce qui se passe au lac, puis même ceux qui habitent pas près du lac. Comme moi, je suis très impliqué dans cette cause-là, puis je suis pas un riverain. Je reste pas sur le bord du lac, mais je me sens interpellé parce que pour moi, c'est une question de protection de l'environnement, de protection d'habitats qui sont essentiels à la diversité écologique de la région. Puis on a pour moi, c'est un trésor dans la région, un trésor caché que le monde ne connaisse pas, puis qu'il faut absolument protéger.
In the wintertime, everybody goes down, and we actually even make a big skating rink just so we can play hockey. And then after that, there's like trails, and you can skate, you know, for almost 2 kilometers. And it's for everybody around the lake and outside of the lake. You know, and the lake is for everybody. There's people that don't live directly on the lake that are still enjoying the lake. Oh yeah, they take their kayaks and they go in, and you know, it's like the lake is for everybody as long as we keep it clean, and so far that's been the case.
Par cette pétition, nous demandons à la mairesse de Chelsea de relever immédiatement le niveau du lac à son niveau habituel afin de permettre à la faune et à la flore de se rétablir, puisqu'à la lumière des faits, il n'y a plus de bonnes raisons de maintenir le lac à ce niveau. Nous demandons aussi que Madame la mairesse assume la responsabilité de réparer, si nécessaire, et d'entretenir les 2 barrages comme elle se devait de le faire avec le supplément de taxes payé par les riverains au cours des années. Nous demandons aussi à Madame la mairesse de soumettre la proposition du projet résidentiel planifié dans le corridor écologique Breckenridge à son comité des ressources naturelles et à la CCN et d'implanter leurs recommandations. Une telle collaboration permettrait de réellement vivre en harmonie avec l'environnement, tel que le dit le slogan de la municipalité de Chelsea. À la lumière des faits présentés dans ce documentaire, nous demandons aussi au ministre de l'Environnement d'examiner toutes les décisions prises par son ministère concernant l'abaissement du niveau du lac Beamish, ceci afin de s'assurer que ce genre de situation ne se reproduise plus et de procéder à une évaluation environnementale sur les conséquences d'abaisser de façon aussi drastique le niveau d'eau du lac Beamish.
Madame Mayor, you have the authority to bring back the ecosystem of Mountains Lake to its initial state, the peace of mind of the residents of Hollow Glen, and to create harmonious relations with your citizens. Also, Madame Mayor, when you and the council members make decisions or when you approve new projects, we ask that you be consistent with the municipality's spirit and that you remain true to its slogan, environment-friendly community. Protect this regional jewel for the benefit of all Chelsea citizens so that our future generations can also take advantage of this exceptional environment. And to me, that can only be one thing, and that's the restoration of the lake to its historic levels. It's part of nature. It has become its own biosphere, its own ecological system by itself, and it's self-supporting, and it supports such a diversity of life, and it teams with it, and it's so evident, and it's seasonal, but it's vibrant, and how could it not be happy if it doesn't return?
Il y a de l'histoire ici, puis ça concerne tous les habitants de Hollow Glen, pas juste ceux autour du lac. J'aime le lac, j'aime l'espace, j'aime le fait que c'est à proximité de la ville. C'est un coin de paradis, là.
On a eu beaucoup de pique-niques en famille. On allait sur le lac, les petits-enfants se baignaient, puis sautaient à l'eau. On a eu beaucoup de bons souvenirs sur le lac.
Other than that, everything that happens here centers around family. It engenders that. It nurtures that. It's all part and parcel of the place we live. It seems to go hand in hand with it. It's a natural marriage, as my marriage is to my wife and us to the land.
On a des remusqués, on avait une belle tortue, nous autres. Là, c'est fini.